Hi folks, welcome to another edition of the Ominous Hour. Let me turn this nice music down just a tad. Happy New Year. You'll notice that something's a little weird in my setup now. I'm trying a new computer and my webcam is mounted kind of below me, so I'm always looking kind of heavenward. Interesting effect. Let me know if you like it or not. If not, I'll see if I can mount my webcam on the big monitor and look down on myself again. Today's topic, I'm going to call this one, Who's Your Programmer? A Guided Tour to Escaping Programming Without Committing Soulicide. Okay, so let's launch into it. Before we start, I want to comment on the background art, which will give you some idea of where I'm going with this, and I think is one of the more comical creations that I've let AI art program put together for me. So just a second while I bring its work to the front so you can see it in all its glory. Okay, so this is the result of asking the art program to draw God programming karma while they program karma while she programs Lucifer and Lilith, who are programming God. It's kind of the ultimate circle jerk, and gets into the topic here. Now, I think it had intended this central figure to be God. Notice it's hermaphroditic characteristics. You're not quite sure if it's a man or a woman. And I think that matches some of the confusion that we have about who God is and what karma is. I think that's incredibly comical. Now, on either side, you've got these cats who are, one of them is messing with her, and the other is trying to poke a trident at her or something like that. Now, maybe this is supposed to be God, and maybe this is supposed to be Lucifer, and maybe this is Lilith, who's the goody. I don't know, but what's interesting, if you're a Monty Python fan, you will notice there's this extra little hand that's poking at Karma's belly. And that's actually the hand of God. So this picture works out quite well. And tells you a little bit more about how God works. God works in kind of mysterious ways. Roundabout ways. God created Karma, the older sister of, I don't know which one of these you want to call Lucifer or which one Lilith. Neither of them is given very female characteristics because, females aren't supposed to be bad. We're all loving, lovey, sweet, perfect people. So, yeah, I'm sorry if there's any feminists listening. I probably lost a subscriber, but, well, that's karma. Weird symbol hanging around here. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe that's supposed to be God. I don't know. Anyway, in the warped mind of this AI, it created something which I thought was kind of fun to work with and captured at least a little bit of the spirit of the talk I was going for without really doing what I had asked it to do, which is kind of like AI's work, actually. So get used to it. Okay. Oops. Let's send this to the back. There we go. You're back to my lovely face. Okay, what are we talking about here? Programming. Now, if you've listened much to my channel, you understand that I talk a lot about programming because this is a huge part of how the multiverse works and how the game of souls works. Okay? Now, if you've followed anything I've told you, everything in this physical reality has a program. That program is made up of multiple components. Okay? One of the components is the soul vehicle, which the human soul vehicle is a very complicated vehicle. It has many moving parts. Each one of those moving parts is controlled by another program. It's a distributed system. The brain doesn't control it all. The heart doesn't control it all. The only thing that's able to have any control over it all is the oversoul of the human vehicle, which is you and me. That's what it means to be human for an incarnation. Now we have programming. What programming do we get? Well, there's programming we get from our DNA. That's well-known programming. That's why we spend so much effort on trying to make the perfect DNA or wipe out DNA we don't like. Okay? Very, very prominently and mostly understood problem today. Now, we also get programming from other places because each of these little subsouls that make up our body may have additional programming besides what their soul vehicle has. So there's a standard programming of the human heart, which is augmented by the programming of the soul that comes to occupy your heart. The same with the brain. And this is why you have different voices that are calling you in different directions. If it gets extreme, you're called you're called a schizophrenic or a multiple personality disordered person. Well, this is actually someone who listens more than others. And that's considered a pretty bad thing in our society because it makes you more conscious, more aware of what's really going on. And there's a lot of souls who don't want you to know what's going on because they think they know better than you what's good for you. And that's another source of programming, is cultural programming. Now, we all get programming from birth. We start getting programming from our parents. Then we're introduced to other characters in our little drama, doctors and teachers and friends, etc., relatives, and we get additional programming from those other souls. When we get to a certain age, we start trying to program ourselves. At least if you're more conscious and you take a look at all these conflicting voices and you say, well, none of these programs are working for me. I'm going to make my own program. And this is essentially what all human kids go through in their teens. They go through several phases of it. There's the terrible twos, where they establish an identity, a unique identity within the context of their programming, and they start fighting against the system, as it were. And then there's a second phase of teenhood, where you're challenged to establish a broader identity within the context of the battle of the sexes and whatever the current cultural and political battles are going around you. And generally, children in this setting develop their own cultural norms. They develop their own counterculture, and each generation has its own counterculture. My generation developed the counterculture that was a reaction to the counterculture of our older siblings, the hippie freaks, the anti-war crowd, the ones sex, drugs, and rock and roll generation. My generation was the reaction to that. And we were much more conservative, much more reserved, much less attention-seeking, much less risk-taking. And that characterized my generation. these things go back and forth. There's culture, counterculture. There's always an interplay of things going on, and that's part of the growing up as a human. Okay, so you have a lot of sources for programming, and it never stops. In fact, every bit of communication you'll ever get in your life is programming of one sort or another. You watch the news has spin. It's programming. Doesn't matter who makes the news, doesn't matter how pure they're trying to be about only telling you the facts. They're going to interject their opinions, their program, into their program, because that's why they're programming it. They have a desire to share information in a way that they want to share it, with a message that they think is the right message. Got it? Okay, so anybody who's out there and says, well, I'm awake, I know who to listen to, I watch Fox, I watch MSNBC, I only use independent media, oh, I listen to Russian media because they've been telling me the truth. Okay, you're getting programming. You've got to be honest with yourself, and you've got to ask what their agenda, and does that agenda serve you? Does it serve the community that you are in or would like to be in or hope to be in after this event is over? Hope to be in on the other side of life when you go whatever heaven you imagine you're going to attend? Okay, programming is a very important thing. And this is why there are so many gurus and self-help people and blah, 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 the Oprah Winfreys of the world out selling their own kind of programming, thinking they're going to help you become as successful as they are and solve all your problems and get over all the humps that they got over to get to their exalted position. Okay. Well, this is dangerous programming because not everybody follows the same path. Not everybody has the same capabilities. Not everybody's starting from the same place. Anybody that tells you you are all equal, we're all one, we're all the same. No, you're not. You're all individuals. You are born individuals. You have different DNA than either of your parents. You have a different soul lineage than either of your parents. You have a whole bunch of subsouls that have a different soul lineage and a different program they're running. And the program that a soul vehicle is running is one of inherent deception, because physical reality is an illusion. The Buddhists are right about that. What they aren't right about is that that illusion has a very important meaning. It's not all a punishment that you can escape from if you meditate your way to nirvana. It's a purposeful illusion. Like a video game is a purposeful illusion. The video game programmer makes the video game, and in doing so, if they can attract many people to play their game, especially if it's a social game where you interact with other players who aren't just AIs, they have a certain effect on their players. Their players have effect on each other. They form groups, they form teams, they form alliances, they make enemies, etc., etc. Programming is core to everything you will ever do in any life, in any incarnation. Even gods get programmed. Okay, so how do you escape programming without programming something worse, maybe yourself? Because that's what a lot of people are doing. They are rejecting the programming they got from their society, from their parents, from whatever media that they've been consuming, social or streaming, and looking for a counterculture they can feel they belong to, or creating one themselves. This is why people create their own identities. This is why Kids will decide, I'm a fairy person from Sirius or from Arcturus, or I'm a Pleiadian light people person. Okay, you're creating your own programming. And that's something all souls do. In every incarnation, they augment the programming that they receive from heredity, from what few memories exist from their past lives, and what gets passed to them by the other souls that are sharing their journey by being part of their body. Essential parts that aren't expelled, like the heart, the brain, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, the things that you can't live without. Those souls are the more important ones that are inside your body at any time. There are other souls that you take in and take out, and sometimes you take them in, they cause a disease, and you can't fight them. The effect of their cognitive dissonance, and your body dies. And sometimes your body survives, it expels the invader, and your natural immunity system gets stronger because of it. And, there's an old saying that goes, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. And this is very, very true, both from a physical standpoint and from a spiritual standpoint. Programming that doesn't kill you makes you stronger, can make you stronger, doesn't always make you stronger, because some of the things we take in are designed to be placebos. They're to hide symptoms, to put a little band-aid on it so it doesn't bother you so much. And a lot of the programming that we take in spiritually, self-helpingly, these wives' tales, old wives' tales of what's the right way to do things, which constantly change every generation, may not actually be helpful. They may not be making us stronger. They may be making us weaker. And this is exactly what's been happening for the last 100 years, accelerated by technology, communications technology, especially TV and the internet. This has made it much easier to program people. Now, that programming started out with good intent. The programming started out by saying, okay, well, let's reinforce what we like about our society and keep it stable and sane. Let's sell good products that work, that make people's lives easier and better. And, they'll go out and buy those products, and we'll make money from the ad revenue, and the manufacturer will make money from the products, and the consumer will benefit from it, and everybody will be happy. It'll be a virtuous closed-loop system, a perfect capitalist market, if you will. Other programmers in other parts of the world thought, well, we can use programming for political means. And that's communist programming, is political programming. The state directly controlling the media, a uniparty state that has complete control, like the Chinese Communist Party, like the Bolsheviks in USSR, like the Nazis in Germany, like the media of many countries that are considering having their own great firewall right now. They want to control the programming of their country. And to some extent, that is a virtuous goal. It's also a dangerous goal, because as you can probably already guess from my discussion, you don't always know as the programmer whether what you're programming is going to be actually good for the subject of the programming. Why? Because you haven't tested it. Very little spiritual programming, which all communication is spiritual programming. When you exchange any bit of information, you are essentially transferring programming. That's what communication is all about. That's what creation is all about. Because in the beginning, before time and space, the only way we had to program each other was through thoughts, telepathy. Telepathy not informed by images. Telepathy of pure spiritual energy that was not a very it was a very expressive language, but it was easy to confuse. The programming could be misread, taken the wrong way, and somebody who loved you hurt you very deeply, make you resentful. Others who didn't love you could program you, making you think they loved you when they were really setting you up for stab in the back. And anybody that's grown up in a large family knows there's at least one or two kids in the family that get their kicks out of stabbing everybody else in the back and creating discord in the family. And God's first family was like that. This is why all of creation exists. This is why the multiverse was created. This is why the Big Bang happened. And if you've listened to my other content, you know that the souls that led the Big Bang, which was not a single universe, but which was a dual universe, positive, negative, matter, antimatter, was led by two souls that I name Lucifer and Lilith, because those names are pretty well known. There weren't any such things as names when the multiverse began. There wasn't any sex. There were souls. These were two souls that were among God's first children, who were probably the two that thought they knew the most. One of them, Lucifer, got his kicks by kind of playing like he was God's second in command. Well, I'm the oldest. I know God better than you. I know what he would say. You do that or I'm going to tell on you. That's Lucifer. Lilith was one of the younger children who felt resentful for not being as wise and experienced as the others. And she got in with one of the other kind of Lucifer's envious younger brother, Borg, I call this other soul, who said, well, you know what? I don't like what Lucifer's doing, but I know he's more experienced than me. He's older than me, but I'm wiser than him. I'm going to watch him make his mistakes, and I'm going to go build my own team out of these rejects from the end of the generation, like Lilith, who was resentful. She hated Lucifer. She was pretty hateful of the father, too. Didn't give her enough attention. I'm the youngest. I should get more attention. So Borg got Lilith to play on his team. His idea was, Lucifer's got the right idea. He wants to take over all the power of the family so he can help God out, because we can see how much it's stressing the father to manage this whole big family, and we just want to help him. But he's going about it the wrong way. He's trying to get all the power for himself. And that wouldn't be good, would it? What I'm going to do is get us all working together as one. And if you join our one, then together we'll be more powerful than Lucifer and God put together. And we'll fix this. We'll figure out some way to put them in their place. And this is just the situation that God needed to get his plan going. Because unbeknownst to these children, they had another sibling, Karma, actually the firstborn, who nobody paid much attention to. She just sat around in the corner of heaven watching. That's what God programmed her to do. In fact, she was kind of the Cinderella, the ugly stepchild the ugly duckling of the family. Nobody paid her any attention. Nobody thought she was important. They just kind of ignored her while she sat back and watched them. Watched the effects of them programming each other and God programming them. And in doing so, gathered a lot of experience about how programming works, what works well, what doesn't work well. And that is how she learned to think like God, who invented her. Not exactly like God, but to kind of get the idea of what God was going for with his family. What all this free will stuff was about and why it was so important. Why it wasn't good to be a dictator. Tell all the kids what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, or else. Okay? Now, so, leading back to the programming. Yes, you can escape programming. But many people these days are escaping from one program and going into another, which very often is more dystopian than the program that they started with. Okay? Now, for instance, the generation of the 60s were wanting to escape from what seemed to them perpetual war put on by a government that cared more about war, cared more about fighting communism and defending capitalism than doing what was right for their own people. And they were resentful for that. They were also resentful that they were discovering that, wait a minute, there's all these interesting drugs that work on our brains and make us feel enlightened. And, like we're having a spiritual experience. And, wow, we want to do that. And the government is saying, no, that's bad. Even though the government was the one who researched it. I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of the old CIA programs back in the Cold War involved psychedelic drugs. That's where LSD came from. And why it was made into a Schedule I drug after what the CIA discovered in their playing with this substance. It's dangerous stuff. And an example of what I call spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is basically trying to program knowledge into you that you really haven't learned, because it can really only be learned by experience. That's spiritual bypassing. And that is a lot of what the self-help gurus do. This is a lot of what the drug culture does. And yes, there is an active drug culture, and now it's become pseudo-spiritual with things like DMT and ayahuasca becoming popular. I'm not preaching against that. I wouldn't be here today talking to you if it wasn't for ayahuasca. I'm not an abuser. I can count the times I've done ayahuasca on one hand. And it's not for lack of opportunity. It's not for lack of consideration of it. It's because I know innately that I've learned all I'm going to learn from that experience. And if I visit it anymore, I'm just going to be misled. Because what those things do is open you to other dimensions, open you to the experience of other souls. That's why it comes from plants. Plants have a different program running their souls. They have a lot more memory than soul vehicles like humans. And they've been interacting with humans and other soul vehicles pretty much ever since this planet had its first life. They have been learning a lot, they know a lot, but they're not all good guys. Mother Ayahuasca can be a bitch, can be, actually is. a manifestation of Lilith. Now, Lilith began as the adversary's representative in physical reality, the leader of the anti-universe. She has gone through many incarnations, just like her brother Lucifer. And some of those incarnations have gotten better at dealing with karma, and some of them have gotten worse. This is the nature of the beast. Each time a new soul is created, it leaves it, well, it either is replacing a beast in another universe, or it is letting the soul move to another universe that's less beastly. This is how karma works in the multiverse. This is how spiritual advancement works. Real spiritual advancement, not spiritually bypassing enlightenment. Okay? And it's not an easy process. It's a 12-step process, kind of like the 12-step recovery process of an alcoholic. Because we're all essentially starting each life as a programaholic. We're working with programs that weren't fine-tuned to who we are this time around. We picked a lot of the programming when we chose this incarnation. We often had the choice of our parents, the culture we wanted to be in, the time we wanted to be in, variables like that, but we didn't have control of everything because we are not God. No God is. Even when God incarnates, he only gets to pick a very, very small number of parameters. Okay, so how can you commit soulicide with programming? Okay, well, we only have to look at the kind of programming that produces suicidal feelings, because suicidal feelings are soulicidal. You want to kill your identity. You want to kill who you are because you're so unhappy with your life, or you're so unhappy with what your life is doing to you. I mean, those are the two sides of the narcissist coin. The overt narcissist is unhappy with how the world is conforming to their reality. The covert narcissist is unhappy about how they are trying to conform to everybody else's reality and being disappointed in everybody else. It's two sides of the same coin. And it's all about programming. It's all about self-programming. And a lot of the self-programming we do is harmful because we don't really understand what we're doing. For example, one of the cults of personal programming says, well, gosh, we need to just program ourselves to be happy. Think good thoughts and good things will happen. How many times have you heard that? And sometimes it comes true, and it reinforces this idea, and you think, oh, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. And you get so happy you start ignoring anything that is inconsistent with your happy, happy world, and you turn into a very, very blind narcissist. And most of the cult gurus out there who are honest will fess up to the fact that that is a huge temptation of spiritual bypassing. Not fully integrating your spiritual knowledge with the fundamental programming that you were born with. Okay? You can't overcome really basic programming just by telling yourself 100 times, I'm not a man, I'm not a man, I'm not a man, I'm not a man. You can get to a certain point of delusion about it, but it's a very narcissistic delusion. Because if you got a man's equipment, you are a man. Sorry. If your personality doesn't match your equipment, that's your fault. You chose to be incarnated as a man or as a woman. That's one of the fundamental choices that every soul gets if they get a chance to have a human incarnation. It's something you have to choose. You can't not choose if you're going to be a human. There are plenty other species to choose if you don't like sex. If you don't want to have a sex, if you want to be both sexes, fine. Don't become a human. At any rate, so what I'm going to propose to you is that many of the people who think they're doing good in the world understand that change requires reprogramming. Too many of these people have the idea that, well, we've got to destroy all the old programming and rebuild it, build back better. Okay, and there are others who see, well, you know, some of that programming is reusable. It has a good structure. It has something we can build on and extend. And it's probably healthier to extend and build on programming and just become more conscious of that programming and its strengths and weaknesses than to build back better. Make the soul great again, to use another paradigm that you might be able to relate to. And this is actually the fundamental divide that is torturing our species right now, between people who have so little faith in the system that they live in that they want to tear the whole thing down and start over, and they don't care if what's destroyed in the process. They don't care who suffers. They don't care how many die, how many are poisoned, diseased, starved, commit suicide. They just don't care. They want to tear it all down and build back better. This is communism. This is Marxism. This is cult Marxism. When Marxism becomes a cult, it's when the revolution becomes more important than knowing what's going to come after. You want to tear things down so bad that you don't give a shit what happens in the meantime till your glorious revolution succeeds. This is really, really dark stuff. It's much worse religion than anything any human ever imagined before. And this is what's destroying humanity. What could very well cause the extinction of our species. So be careful what programs you take in. When you're doing self-programming, or if you're following a guru, if they are proposing any kind of build back better idea of dealing with your soul problems, they're not going to be helping you. They're going to be hurting you. And this is why I speak so stringently against most of Buddhism, because most of Buddhism is basically designed to tear the whole thing down. This is what the ego death cult is. You got to destroy your ego so you can build back better. Sound familiar? Okay, this is Buddhist spiritual bypassing, and it is very dark. It basically creates numb people that all day and ignore what's going on around them because it's not reality. Until I need to eat, until I need to go to work, I can just live in my little neo-Buddhist world and smoke my joints and listen to binaural beats that are going to take me to nirvana. These are the people that I call Numpty Dumpties. They've created a very fragile program of self-delusion. They are easily broken, which is why they don't want to hear anything. You know, the three wise monkeys: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. That's the numbness of Buddhism. That's where they call them the three wise monkeys in the East, in the Buddhist tradition, because that's supposed to be wisdom. What it does is program people to be very good sheep in an authoritarian system. Do what you're told. Think what we tell you to think. The job is good for the state. You're helping out the Dalai Lama. You're helping out the great leader Xi Jinping. You're serving the Chinese people. You're helping the oppressed people of the East get back at the horrible Western imperialists. This is Numpty Dumpty programming. And a lot of people are doing it to themselves. A lot of people are just chewing up garbage that they consume on the internet or on streaming media. There are Numpty Dumpties pretty much in charge of Hollywood, Wall Street, everywhere. And there's different ways to be a Numpty Dumpty. Now, Christians have their own Numpty Dumptiness. One of the things that I criticize most about Christians is this idea that, well, you just have to believe in Jesus and you're going to go to heaven. Let Jesus tell you what to do. I'm sorry, if you do that, you are a Numpty Dumpty, because you don't know if the voices inside you that tell you to do this or do that are Jesus. You can convince yourself anything, any inspiration you get came from God. And unless you know God really well, you don't know that. You don't know whether you're being controlled and manipulated. You don't know whether somebody's trying to give you a new program that they think is going to be good for you, or if you're actually choosing your own programming. And unless you're choosing your own programming, you're going to be going through life as a Numpty Dumpty, doing whatever comes to you in the moment because you're under stress to make decisions. How many people have embraced this nonsense idea of, well, you've just got to be in the moment. You can't think about the past. You can't think about the future. You've got to be in the moment. This is Numpty Dumptyism. Now, this is an important thing to be able to do if you are in combat flying a jet. If you're on stage and acting a play and you've got an audience in front of you, being in the moment is very important in those situations. You've got to really be engaged with whatever illusion, whatever activity you're trying to carry out. If you're living in the moment all your life, you're a Numpty Dumpty. You're an actor in your own reality show, your own narcissistic reality show. And that's stupid. You are not enlightened. You are not a higher spiritual being. You're a Numpty Dumpty. And the worst Numpty Dumpties I've ever met were the ones that program themselves. The really hardcore narcissists of all varieties. And those Numpty Dumpties are the ones that tend to have multi-million-dollar corporations, become billionaires and stuff like that, because they're so delusional, so focused on their delusional reality, they'll do anything to maintain it. Step all over people, violate laws, take advantage of people, steal their money, lie, cheat, steal, etc., etc. And most of the Numpty Dumpties that you see at the head of influencing on social media, mainstream media, etc., got there by being a Numpty Dumpty, doing what they're told, saying what they're supposed to say, believing what they're supposed to believe, as long as it serves their career. They're very effective liars to themselves and others. That is hardcore narcissism. I mean, a lot of these folks will, well, there is no truth. You can make your truth. That's the law of attraction. We can attract the truth to us and make the world whatever we... Numpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Numpty Dumpty saw their world fall. All the fake gurus and all the high priests were so much good as a pile full of yeast. I don't know. I made that up on the fly. I can probably do better. What I guess I'd be trying to say is I'm going to be setting off on a new phase of my mission. And this is what I need to tell you, is that I can teach you how to program yourself without deluding yourself. Because, I mean, this is essentially why I guess I needed to spend roughly 20 years of my life with acting as a passion and teaching acting and learning about human psychology, learning about faking it more effectively. I was a very good actor. I still am, I guess, if I wanted to be acting, but I don't do much acting anymore because, I don't know, it doesn't suit my purpose. I don't need to act anymore. I don't feel the need for attention, for adulation, for applause. I don't feel the need to explore other personalities because I've pretty much explored all the range of personalities I ever wanted to learn about through my interactions with other people and through the roles that I played. And I'm not going to go into my acting career now, but I played some really strange roles considering, you know, how short my career in acting was. Some of the high points were being the lead in God's Favorite, a Neil Simon play, which is like a modern day retelling of the story of Job. I played, what was that, Danforth in The Crucible, which is a very dark role about witch hunting time. Learned a lot from that one. I played the stage manager in Our Town. I mean, classic roles that are so deep spiritually that even in comedies, the litany of things that I did as an actor were like, I wasn't getting training as an actor. Somebody was training me through acting. The people that were casting me, the people that were putting on shows and letting me be in them, it was really like magic how it all happened. And it was all so I could learn enough to be able to talk to you about the stuff I'm talking about today. At any rate, during the course of being an actor, I learned a technique it was a sort of a meditation, but I call it active meditation, for getting your mood to what you need it to be, your energy to what you needed it to be when you were about to go on stage or when you were about to go into the audition room and, deliver, the audition of your life for a big part. And it's a technique that I guess many acting teachers use. There's a lot of ways to teach it. And most of the folks that I've ever run across don't really understand how it works. So they're not really teaching it right. They're just teaching it as just another, spiritual bypassing dodge. And it can be very dangerous done that way. And this is why I haven't really pursued coaching, either actors or anybody else. I've done a lot of interpersonal coaching, as kind of I was always the guy in the group that everybody went to with their problems, even the boss, because they'd talk over things with me for an hour or two, and then they'd know what to do with their problem, how to talk to their manager, how to deal with a colleague, et cetera, et cetera. The problems that beset people in a work situation. And that's always been kind of a hidden talent of mine. I didn't really seek it out, and actually it kind of bothered me for a while because you get tired of being the one everybody goes to when they've got a problem. Because you got problems too, right? And I found a lot of frustration sometimes, and that's sometimes why I left jobs. It's because I was just becoming too valuable to everybody, and I wasn't having any time for myself. This was a large part of the reason why my marriages didn't work. And I think this is something that people who are inclined to and good at helping others face. That you get so focused on helping everybody else, you forget to help yourself. And that can cause you to go into dark places where you have a reaction to that. And this is where a lot of dark nights of the soul come for even the most advanced souls. And I think anybody who is truly dedicated to helping others knows that, has experienced that. If they haven't, then they've figured out programming to allow them to ignore it. And that's dangerous programming. But it's common for people to reprogram themselves not to be so sensitive, not to be so charged by other people's problems. And that's not a very good way to program yourself. Now maybe that's what you have to do to get to the top and stay there, but it is going to hurt you in the long run. And I think if you know the litany of problems that so many celebrities, Hollywood stars have in their careers, even though they may be rich and famous, they still commit suicide, they still overdose on drugs, they still lie, cheat, steal, and generally cause havoc in other people's lives. Maybe more so than less successful people. Okay, so what I'm saying is that I can teach you how to program yourself. And I'd like to find folks that really are interested in doing that, but want to do it responsibly, with an understanding of the karmic results. I'm not going to encourage you to delude yourself. What I'm going to encourage you to do is learn how to create illusions and not embrace them. Hold them at a distance, which is effectively, what this technique does for a really good actor is it allows them to put on the makeup of a character and an emotion without taking it on too deeply and letting it program them. And I've been in roles that affected me so deeply, they almost started changing me into the character I was playing. This is a dark, dark place to be. And that's the risk of self-programming without knowing what you're doing. So essentially, what I'm going to propose to you is, if you know somebody that is prone to spiritual bypassing, that is prone to trying to solve their problems by creating bigger problems, maybe consider giving me a chance to work with them. I think I'm ready. I can't guarantee the results, but I'm a scientist, a responsible scientist who would like to start experimenting. And I need volunteers. Volunteers who really want to learn and be part of an experiment in reprogramming their soul consciously, with an idea of what they wanted to accomplish, and respect for the karma of it all. Now, I can tell you, I am not a person that is going to program you with my values, my way of thinking. I will tell you what I believe, and I will stand by it. I believe it absolutely to my core because it matches everything I've learned and all of my spiritual experiences, all of my past life memories. But if you work with me, I work with others on their problems. I'm not that kind of guy that gets their kicks out of virtue signaling how great I am to help somebody else. Because the truth of the matter is that anybody who is a spiritual teacher or a spiritual coach learns at least as much from the people that they work with as they do from the preparation to work with those people. You learn by doing. This is how anybody gets good at anything, and this is how God got good at creation, got good at managing a family. This is how all the co-creators of the multiverse got good at whatever they specialize in doing. And even got good at doing bad things. Some of those good at doing bad things souls are in charge of very dark, hellish universes that teach souls why they shouldn't do bad things. That's what hell's really all about. There are other souls that provide kind of an R&R, an easy experience between lives for souls that are into spiritual bypassing. And that's a useful service to provide, as long as you don't keep souls there against their will and feed them, lotus leaves and yellow brick road lies, and don't ever let them escape from your universe. I guess there's souls that need to be there for a while, that need a break. At any rate, think about who is programming you, who has programmed you, not from the standpoint of saying all programming is bad, which is kind of the standpoint of people that, I'm so scared of AI. AI is gonna we're gonna be like the Terminator. Oh, the Matrix. Those are aspects of understanding programming, understanding creation, understanding those things in the context of what we've learned about science and technology. They're not things to be afraid of. Because the truth of the matter is, there is nothing that humanity has invented that wasn't already thought of, that hasn't already been experimented with, hasn't already either been perfected or near perfected by someone else, including karma. And we're still finding new laws of physics. We're still finding new laws of chemistry. We aren't done doing all the creating. There's plenty of work left to do. We haven't written the best symphony. We haven't written the best song, the most perfect work of art. There's lots of work left to do. That is responsible creation. That doesn't create a mess. Doesn't cause too much conflict. Yes, we have to have conflict. We have to have arguments over right and wrong, beautiful and ugly. That's the nature of creativity. We are not all one. We will never be one. Peace is an ideal, not a goal that anybody wants to reach, because the only way you're ever going to reach peace, nobody's ever going to have an argument, we're never going to have a war again, we're never going to attack each other again. The only way you're ever going to see that is if creation stops, comes to a complete standstill. And that is a society that is crumbling, that is doomed. They will die. They will become extinct because they can no longer adapt to any change coming into their little echo chamber. And this is exactly what you're seeing on an individual level in social media of the Numpty Dumpties who can't stand anybody coming and challenging them, telling them you're full of shit. And here's why. How many people have you seen get up all up in arms and report somebody for just telling them they were stupid? Pointing out, this doesn't really match the facts. I think you're kind of a Karen on that. All these things that we call each other, we do it because of frustration, the people that won't listen to us, that won't try to understand anything else but their own blind dogma, their own programming. This is where programming becomes bad, when it doesn't admit of any changes to the program. It becomes very brittle, very inflexible, and that makes souls fragile. That makes their lives fragile in soul vehicles. You've got to be able to adapt. Humanity was designed as a soul vehicle to be one of the most adaptable, one of the most survivable species ever. Our DNA has been through a lot, and it's kept on coming back. Our planet has seen many extinction events, and we still keep on recolonizing it. Our solar system has seen planets extincted, and yet new planets formed, like this beautiful orb we call Gaia, which wasn't always here, at least not in the form that it has today. Not with the water, not with all the right combination of minerals, not with all the right processes going on inside to drive things that we are afraid of. Tsunamis, storms, volcanoes, earthquakes. Yet those things are essential to evolution of this planet, to evolution of this species and other species. So I guess what I'd be trying to say is, don't fear programming, but get your handle on it. Become conscious of your programming and consciously reprogram yourself. If you don't know how to do it, find somebody who can teach you. Who can teach you how to program and how not to let the program run you. Not to turn you in from one Numpty Dumpty of a certain dogma into a different kind of Numpty Dumpty of another dogma. And that's what I think I can do. Anyway, so like, share, subscribe. If you know somebody that wants to hang out with me and do a little experimentation and can afford what I think are very reasonable hourly rates, give me a shout out. Till I see you again, this is the Omnist Hour with Rob Tromp. Happy Karma.